As we're going into the paper piece part of our quilt, we're going to get the templates that you printed off from the internet, and you're going to have to make sure that you were, that when you printed it, you didn't have it fit margins. That way the sizing is going to be accurate. I have two different scissors. One is a paper scissors and one is fabric scissors. You don't want to use fabric scissors on paper because it'll dull the blade. So we're going to go for the paper scissors. And you don't want to cut directly on the line on the template. You're going to want to cut a little on the side and not directly on the line because you want that little bit of extra, so when you're cutting out the fabric you can use that as a guiding line to cut perfectly around the squares. I'm just going to cut out one for now. Now if you look at this, this is the guideline for the state of Alaska. If you look, this is A and this is A. It is the direct mirror of the pattern. You will want to sew on the back and not the front, so that when it comes out, it'll be the image that you would want on here. Here's another one that is cut out and the edges are clean. So you sew on the mirror image so that when you get the finished side done, you can see that it matches the state. So we're going to be working with this one. And I already have a little piece cut out for the blue. Let's get the purple. And I have 5 different colors that I'm using to make the pattern pieces. I decided to do all of the states in blue and the outline, or the water part and the side in the different colors. I'm going to use the template to kind of show the size. Cutting a little larger, we don't want to cut on the line so that we have a little wiggle room. The one unfortunate thing about paper piecing is you do use and waste a little bit of fabric, but the end result is a picture rather than a pieced quilt. So a lot of the patterns that you have with detail uses paper piecing. So you're going to put the right side on the back. We're going to be sewing on this side, but you want to put the right side facing out. What I do is I use light, so when I'm looking underneath, I can kind of gauge where my fabric should lay under that. So making sure that I have a 1/4 of an inch for the seam allowance that you can see through here. We're going to come to the sewing machine. And one of the things that you need to know when you're sewing through paper, what you want to do is make the stitches smaller. That way it's easier for the paper to be peeled off at the very end. When you sew it, you're going to want the outside, right, I'm going to use this as a pointer. This outside is the seam allowance. You're going to want to sew through the seam allowance, not just on the lines, but all the way through the seam allowance. Take it off, snip the threads, and then open it up. I use my fingers to press it down, and it should be, if you can see through there, it's past the edge. What we're going to do is trim it up to a 1/4 of an inch with our fabric scissors. And you don't want to throw away the scraps, because these scraps can be put in a couple different places so that you don't waste very much fabric. Unfortunately, this triangle is a little too small to be used here because of the seam allowance. So we're just going to put that to the side. We're going to grab our purple fabric again, and I'm going to turn it over so I can guess the width. I'm just going to cut a really long piece here because I can use whatever's left over on the scraps for other pieces throughout the purple squares. Put that to the side. Now we finished with 1A, 2A, and now we're going to go to the 3A. So using the light to gauge the size and the seam, pull it over, and making sure that you sew through that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay. And again, pressing it open with your fingers. And then cutting off the extra so that you can use that extra, we're going to cut it this way, for other pieces throughout the squares. You want to make sure that you have it, enough on the end for the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then flip it over again. I'm going to use this. To find the seam allowance. And then okay. So then you are done with the first one. That is how you do the A template. Now you're not quite finished with this. I'm going to take you over to the cutting board and show you how to finish off the square. Okay, so once you have it done, you don't want to tear off the paper until you cut it the right size. You do not want to go on the inside line. Using the outside line, which gives you the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, take your rotary tool and cut right through. And that is waste that will go in the garbage. Some people keep the scraps and use those for stuffing for dolls or other items that they use for stuffing. I don't make any of those myself, so I usually just get rid of it. One last cut. So now you have the shape of the panhandle. What you have to do now is carefully tear off the paper. You fold it over a couple times to create a softer edge to tear. If you don't fold it over, you can actually tear out your seams and then you'll have to re-sew. That's not fun. Or you have to reprint the template and do it all over again. Okay, the last piece, and there you have template A done.